Hey guys, it is a muggy, humid, hotter than the devil's armpit kind of morning. It is so miserable outside, but there are some things in the garden that are looking particularly amazing. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to show you just a couple of things that are still looking pretty darn good as we get into the dog days of summer. Okay, first of all, let's give it up to the Supertunia Vista Bubblegum. Holy moly, you guys. Look at this annual. These are just amazing. I mean, they have mounded up so tall. I mean, look at that. They are almost taller than my boxwoods. And behind them, I have Limelight Prime hydrangeas. This is my favorite time of year with the hydrangeas because they've all bloomed and they are just starting to turn from white to this pink color. And they will get dark, dark pink before the end of the fall. And then they will hold on to those blooms all winter long. And then they just make a beautiful winter interest. And I just can't believe that these hydrangeas are this is only their second season in the ground. They have put on so much growth and they have so many more blooms this year. I am just loving them. Now, honorable mention, I'm going to give to the Supertunia Persimmons. This color is fantastic. Look at that. Now, granted, probably not next to the bubblegum next year, but I love this color and I'm definitely going to be putting it in the ground again next year. I also planted some yellow roses this year, and I really like these. They come out like this real deep yellow color. So, there's a new bud, and then they will lighten up to a white as they get older. And if you don't deadhead them, then they will start to form rose hips when they're all done. So let me see if I can find one that's pretty much set. Oh, here we go. Okay, so they will form rose hips when they're all done. And you can cut these off in the winter and then add these to like dried floral displays and things like that, which is what I'm planning to do with them. There's a bee hanging out on the flower I want to show you. Oh, now there's more. Okay, so here we go. This one is one of my Rosa Sharons. It is finally blooming in August. It has just put out a ton of flowers and they get these really pretty ruffly pink flowers. I just love them. It is another one that has just put on a ton of growth. Ignore the mess there. We're in the process of tearing out like all of the irises because this is all getting redone next year. All right, this view of the garden also just makes my heart happy. So this is the Rock and Plain, the blue salvia. I don't know if you remember from the June garden tour, but they were so short, tiny, tiny, tiny little plants. And look how tall they've grown. They are huge and they have so many different bloom stalks. And each one is just this gorgeous blue color. And if you can see, there are bees all over them. So this is a huge bee attractor. And I didn't know that when I first planted it, but I have had masses of bees over here every single day. Now they don't bug me. They actually don't seem to care that I'm around. They only get a little irked if I water and I get them wet, but I am feeding the whole colony, it feels like. It's been really cool to see. Now behind them, the purple fountain grass is finally starting to really put on some height. So I have, one, two, three, four. I have 5 of them planted in a row here as a backdrop. And they are starting to put out their fall plumes, these real soft plumes, and they will continue to get a bit taller. I mean, once the heat really picked up in July, they really shot up. And I will leave these up all winter long. So they will start to dry as we get into like October, November, but it's just a nice structure in the back of the garden here. But just look at that. Isn't that pretty? And the flower pots are all still going really strong too. So this is the jet black sweet potato vine that is all the way down to the ground now, along with the chocolate drop coleus. And then this is the Supervena violet ice. Loving that mixed in with the sparkling rose. I just love this. The only thing I would do different with this container next year if I planted similar things is I would put a centerpiece in it. I didn't think I needed one, but I really did. Another example of the Rock and Plain, the blue salvia. This one is in a container, so you can actually see it stayed a bit shorter in the container. And I think that's just because it's competing with all of this other stuff for root space. So I have the Sweetheart Lime sweet potato vine, which is looking beautiful and luscious. And then I planted a Supertunia, I think this is a Paradise, Supertunia Paradise in there, but it stayed looking pretty darn good all summer long. This is my other favorite view of the garden. I love this container. I love this container. So this white mass here, it's in a pot. It's just 2 Supertunia Vista Snowdrift plants. That's all I needed to fill that whole pot. Now, underneath here, there's a little baby Bacopa. It's trying to hold on there, but it was quickly overtaken by this massive white. But I have so much pink here. I've got the Supertunia Vista Jazzberry, I've got Phlox, I've got the Coral Knockout Roses, and it just looks, I don't know, it's like a breath of fresh air there, especially since I had to trim back the daisies. The daisies definitely needed deadheaded. If you remember, maybe I'll try to find it, where they were just a huge mass of daisy blooms. But, you know, once they finish up, I had to trim them back. They've put out a few new blooms, not a ton, but a couple. But that gave the Phlox a chance to really shine again. It bloomed once in May, kind of faded out near the end of June, and then it pushed new growth again. But look at the jazzberries. Oh my gosh. Just coming out over my driveway there like crazy. And I think we may finally have the Japanese beetle problem under control. Then over here, the sedum is finally starting to put on its fall color. So it will color up to these really pretty pink tones, and they just have done really well. So this was one sedum plant last year, and I split it up into multiples, and each one has done really well. And more examples of just how that Supertunia Vista Jazzberry is going nuts. So the garden bed, I'll just show you. So the garden bed's back here, right? And so it grows over the grass. And I actually came through and I trimmed back the jazzberry because it was all the way out to here. And I had to lift it up to try to trim and edge the grass. So I did go ahead and I cut it back because it was going nuts. But it is growing up and into the sedum plant there. And I'm just going to let it do it until I pull it because it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And one more real stunner up here. Well, I guess 2. Look at this grass. Ugh, love that. So these are the Firelight Tidbit hydrangeas. So they stay on the shorter side. So this one over here is the one I planted last summer, and then these 2 were added this summer. And they do the same thing that the primes do. They will turn to this pink color, but they are shorter in stature. But isn't that just beautiful? Like, look, we've got the Daisy May daisies over there. We've got the roses behind them. We've got our new Mr. Bowling Ball Arb, the grass in front. I mean, it's gorgeous. I love it. Still a little too early in the morning for all of these to open up, but this is the hibiscus. I believe this is the Summerific Valley Slipper one. So when it opens up, when the weather gets, as the day goes on and it gets a little bit hotter, it opens up like all the way, like huge. But you can see when it's all the way open, it's bigger than my hand. Just crazy. And this whole thing has been covered in blooms at different points. It drops the blooms as they finish off, so you can see like that part's done blooming. But there are more buds that are still forming, and it's just gorgeous. Everything in the shade garden, still loving life. Queen of Hearts Brunnera doing great. The different hostas. The impatiens are, I just love this foliage. Look how dark and beautiful that is. And then it is still putting out blooms. These bright, like hot pink blooms. That has just been the perfect annual to have in this corner. And then we go over here and you can see the coleus that I planted. They were so tiny and so short, but they have gotten bigger and then they branch out. So like this is one plant. It has like 5 or 6 branches coming off of it. This beautiful mix of colors, from this crimson to a chocolate to like a bright chartreuse green. I put it in front of this caramel colored heuchera, thinking that that would be a good mix, especially as we go into fall, because the color of this doesn't really change. These will actually hold up until we get kind of near the end of September. And I just thought they would be a good mix of colors. Behind them, I have a black lace elderberry that I planted this summer. It is doing pretty good. Hopefully next year, in year 2, it puts on some growth. And then I got a forsythia. Then I did transplant over, I don't think I've shown you guys this before. So this is a climbing hydrangea. I had it in another part of the yard. It really wasn't working out there. So I moved it over through a trellis in, and I'm going to add more trellises. But this guy will get huge. Like, it'll get the height of the house, and it will branch out. I mean, they can get something like 30 feet long. I mean, huge. So it will put out hydrangea blooms, but it just needed to be moved, and it is handling the transplant really well. Like, I haven't seen any wilting or any sign that it's stressing about it. It just has been a happy little plant. But we just really wanted something to kind of start covering the back of the house here, you know, to pretty it up a little bit, because just a plain white house is boring. Okay, as I head out to check the garden, we have done a couple of switcheroos as we've gone through, because I've harvested almost all of the potatoes at this point. The first round of broccoli came out and I actually planted from seed the second round of broccoli along with some cauliflower. The cucumbers have come out because they were all done. Zucchini is almost done. And then I went ahead and I put in spinach already. So I'll have a fall crop of spinach. And then I had a couple zinnia seeds left over. So all in all, the garden it's looking tired, but that's to be expected. Like I said, we're in August. Most of the summer crops are really wrapping things up. And then we will be getting into our fall crops. So corn, for example, so we have harvested the ears of corn from these ones. So I have stopped watering them. We're going to let them dry out. Those ones will be used for fall decoration. These ones over here still have a couple of ears left for us to pull. Then we'll do the same bit. We will go ahead and we will let them dry out. But there is our baby broccoli. And I will have to thin it because I can't grow that many heads that close together. Ooh, look at that. We had like 5 seeds germinating in the same place. So I'll have to trim off a couple of those. And then we've got a couple of cauliflower that are coming up as well. So these will hopefully produce something before we get to the end of the season. This bed across from it's a bit insane right now. So I put bush beans down at the bottom, so a lower bean plant. My neighbor had given me a couple of extra tomato plants. Now he told me they were all cherry tomatoes. They obviously were not. That is not a cherry tomato. So I threw them in, and then I threw them in not long before we went to Europe, and I totally forgot to trellis them before I went. And I came back and they had turned into this. I mean, it's a mess. I actually pulled over some of my tomato cages just to put behind it to help support the weight because it's leaning over so bad. It's really not good for the plant. I really should just go through and like hack out at least half of it, but I haven't had time yet. So I'm just letting it go nuts. And if more of the tomatoes turn, then I will go ahead and pick them. But I really just don't even know what varieties are in here. Like I said, I thought cherry tomatoes. Those are definitely some cherry tomatoes in there, but I don't know what these varieties are. But it's so loaded with tomatoes. And I've harvested so many tomatoes, and there's still more to go. Strawberries are still going strong. Every day, still coming out, finding more Skiscape strawberries to pull off and eat, and that's been awesome. But you can see that the bed for the potatoes is almost all empty. I have these last couple of ones to harvest, and then I just take like a garden fork and I dig up in there and I pull all of the potatoes out. We've been saving those. Okay, next year I need to put some extra support in here because the weight of this pole bean vine has whooped down the metal. A couple of times I've gone in and I've thinned it up and it's popped back up when I've done that. But I think if I just do, I don't know, maybe like a PVC pipe or something just to give it some extra support. But it has been just loaded up with beans every day. And that could be because there's like 6 or 7 plants there. I mean, I planted a bunch of the pole bean seeds and they just all came up like crazy. But that's been fun. Zucchini is almost done. You can see how tired it is. Like it keeps, drying out a branch, and then I'll cut that branch off, but there's another zucchini forming. And as I've cut off dried branches, it's just pushed out more new growth. But I do think it's almost done. And I'm tired of zucchini. Peppers are still doing great. In fact, we just pulled peppers off last night and we made stuffed peppers for dinner. So these are still doing fantastic. These ones were started from seed. The tomatoes, so these are the tomatoes I planted earlier, like near the end of May. And they are just giving so many tomatoes this season. I have canned, 20, 25 different containers of tomato products thus far. And there's more in my fridge for me to take care of. And there's more in here for me to come and harvest. But again, you can kind of see how the plants are just starting to get tired as we get to the end of the season. And as they finish off their fruit there. Ooh, look at my climbing rose. Hi, beautiful. This was planted this year. It was all the way down there at the ground. And it has put up these super long canes. Yes, we see you. Goodness. And little peek at the zinnias. So these were just started from seed about 2 weeks ago. They will flower before the end of the season. Zinnias grow super, super quick. And then behind them, we've got some spinach started and some leaf lettuce. So hopefully the pole beans are shading them enough when we get the intense sun that they aren't getting too hot. Hopefully they'll make it. Now the hardest part of the garden to see this time of year is the vining garden, because naturally what happens is that pumpkin vines and other vining crops, the vines will start to die back as we get closer to harvest. And that's natural. That, you know, they die back, they push more energy into the fruit, so that way the fruit is ready to harvest. But when you're used to looking out and seeing like a beautiful, lush vining garden, and then you look out and it just looks half dead, it's really hard to look at. But you have to keep in mind that is what it's supposed to do. So that being said, here is a picture of what the vining garden looked like a month ago. And here's what it looks like now. So you can see it looks half dead. But again, it's supposed to be doing that. And now that it's starting to die back though, you can see all of the pumpkins that have been growing. I mean, there's so many pumpkins out here. And there is a beast of one back there. Emma went out and took a picture next to it. And she like crouched down into a ball, and the pumpkin is bigger than her. So we're not sure how we're going to move that one. But the vines shot out way out there. I actually had planted, one of the plants was called, it was called like a musky day something or other. It was a specialty pumpkin. It was supposed to be blue. And when I put it in the ground, it looked half dead, and I didn't think it was going to do anything. Well, at some point it decided to do something, because there are blue pumpkins out here as well. And then we've got some cantaloupe still ripening up, and there are butternut squash. Let's see if we can find them in here. Trying not to step on things because they're still growing. Yay, butternut squash. Oh, there's so many butternut squash. Dude, I'm really excited. Now you can actually harvest these starting now if they're ready, but you have to kind of like push into the rind. And if you can push into the rind and cause damage with your fingernail, they are not ready to pull yet. And then you just watch for this to kind of firm up and tell you that it's ready to pull. And then behind it, say hello. Oh, sorry, there's the sunshine. Say hello to the sunflowers. All of these were started from seed. Some of them are as tall as the barn, which is insane. It's insane. And there's a couple different varieties. So you can see there's ones that have the smaller yellow, well, they're smaller with like more of a tiny center. There's ones with the giant centers. There are some that have more of like the orange color in the petals. There's a really cool one over here, if I can get to it without stepping on too many vines. That one's really cool. I like that one. It looks like a giant dandelion. Love it. So yeah, so this is what happened with the pumpkin garden. Basically, the vines just kind of shot out, and I would cut it if they didn't have a pumpkin growing on it, but you can see some of them do. And so I want to go ahead and let those do their thing. Now I'm going to be harvesting pumpkins probably all the way into October, because some of these aren't going to be ready to pull anytime soon. Other ones, you know, that were starting to form up much earlier will be ready to pull, well, probably here in the first week of September. In fact, this one up here was one of the first ones that I noticed forming. Yeah, so you see how kind of thick and woody the stem is starting to get? That's what's going to tell me it's ready to harvest. And then I can just go up to the pumpkin, I can give it a little push with my nail. And if I can damage it, it's not ready to harvest yet. We'll let it harden more. And then even once I pull them out, I will let them sit and kind of cure before I store them. Now, most of these are going to be for decoration, but some of them we might store to use for pies. Here's one of those blue ones that I didn't think made it, but it's a growing. And the teeny tiny decorative white ones. So looking pretty good. Zinnias are all still looking really great as well. I really do need to come in and deadhead, but we've got so many different colors of them blooming. We've been cutting and creating, whoop, Japanese beetle. Oh. We have been cutting and creating arrangements from them throughout the summer. Snapdragons are definitely starting to get tired though. Still pretty. The statice are still pushing out new growth. Now I went through a couple of weeks back and I actually cut off all of the statice bloom stalks, all of them. So the older ones, you know, and I just tossed those into the compost pile. But the fresh ones I have hanging up in the garage drying to make fall floral arrangements with. And I'm going to come through and I'm going to do that again. But let's do one quick look at the dahlias. So the dahlias are still doing pretty darn good. So there's some older blooms on some of them. You can see how well they open up. And then, you know, they start off pretty closed up like this. And then as they get older, you know, they'll age and they'll open up further. really pretty. We've got some that are more of this pinky orange color. We have the real tight ones. There's another one back here if I can get to it. Half this bloom is gone, but look at that color. Isn't that pretty? I hope that's showing up on camera. It's kind of a dark. Oh, will you get out of the flower beds, Loki? Goodness gracious. Okay, darker coral color goes to a light. Oh, there's another one. Ah, there we go. So pretty. This one got some blooms just about to open. Emma cut some of these. She left some of the older blooms on, so you can see this one's tired. It's about ready to be deadheaded, but they face forward. Isn't that interesting? Like on the stem, they face forward. So I don't know, makes them fairly easy to use in arrangements. This one I could probably cut and put in an arrangement. It's got some time left before it opens all the way up. Super pretty. This one I don't think was blooming the last time I did a garden tour. Kind of a light yellow ivory color to it. Super sweet. I like this. This one is getting ready to push out its first bloom. Excited to see what that one looks like. Another one that's got the real tight petals, just kind of this fire engine red yellow tone, and then it gets lighter as it ages. Really, ooh, hold on, let's show you this one. Look at that. So cool. Anyways, I've been pretty happy with the dahlias so far this year. So yeah, so that's how things have been doing in the garden lately. I mean, we've had some things that are definitely stressing as we get into kind of these dog days of summer, and that's to be expected. I mean, we try to water them a little extra, baby them a little bit more, but all in all, I mean, I couldn't be happier with how well things have been producing in the garden and from the cut flower garden and everything. It's just been a really good year overall. Now, here's where I need some ideas from you guys. So this is the view standing from my cut flower garden. You know, there's the house, there's the barn. So we have this huge area of land here. Ignore the dead tree. The dead tree is getting removed. And we've been trying to decide what to do with it. Now my husband wants to have a gravel drive come out of the barn and like arc up to the road here because he's got a race car with a trailer that he stores in the barn. He wants to be able to drive it in and out of the barn. But tell me what your thoughts are. I feel like we need to use this land for something. My first thought was to do like a really formal greenhouse, like a metal and glass greenhouse, and then have some more formal garden beds around it. I think that would be really cool. We've also talked about some sort of a gazebo type structure and doing a rose garden around it, but it's just so much space, guys. So give me your ideas. What do you think we should do over there? Because I know next year we're going to be extending this garden all the way out to, well, as close to the road as we can get it. So we're going to have basically twice the amount of space we have now for doing cut flowers in the ground, and then we can convert these to more vegetables. But this is a lot of land to use, and that's the next round of space that we want to try to figure out what we want to do with it. If we come around into the backyard, you're going to see we actually have quite a bit more land to utilize, but it's just going to be a matter of prioritizing projects and taking some time. So we have a row of crabapple trees back here that are getting removed by a tree company this fall. We're going to be planting up fruit trees. So we'll have a row of like apple trees back here. So these ones here are all crab apples. They need to go away. We need to have something that produces fruit we actually use. But I have a couple of tall willow trees back behind it. I'm thinking of adding in a shade garden and some seating area there. We have some massive shrubs growing that we might remove or we might cut down, you know, get cut back and then create some more garden beds over there. But yeah, need some ideas. So that's just a little bit about how everything is going in August. We are very soon going to be, you know, finishing up all of the harvest of the summer vegetables. I mean, we've been pulling things pretty continuously. We've got fall crops going in, and then we'll be changing out the beds and the containers to fall plants probably in about the second week of September as things start to cool down, especially at night. But this is the time of year where I like to start thinking of ideas for next year. I am getting my seed orders in. I'm getting my dahlia orders in. I've already ordered all of my bulbs for to put in this fall. But the big projects we do need to start planning. So if you have any ideas or inspiration or success stories, please share them down below in the comments. I love to gain inspiration from other gardeners, see what things they have incorporated in their gardens, and see what might work in our own. If you enjoyed this video, guys, thumbs up before you go. Thanks for watching. Bye.